Hi, thanks for joining me today on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I have a guest today that I'm excited for you to listen to. I'll just kind of start off by saying, as you know, if you've listened to any of my shows, there is a very wide variety of people that I have on my show, like huge. I have everything from psychic mediums to healers to people that are talking about their relationships and people that are transgender or people that are cross-dressing to people that love the earth and people that are cult survivors. I really have everything. And that's the great thing, that having your own show, that you can have anything and anybody you want on your show that you think is interesting. And that's what I do. That's why I love this show, because all these guests that I have are all people that I want to have on. And sometimes guests kind of make me reflect back to a moment whenever I was a kid or earlier in my life, whether it was college or even 6 months ago. Some of these will bring up a memory to me. You know, when I was a kid, I remember and just so you know, I grew up like south of Miami for most of my childhood. But when I was 7 years old, I was living in Southern Illinois till I was 7. And we lived in the middle of nowhere. And we had a huge, huge yard. And it was living in the middle of the country, basically. And my cousin lived down the street from me. And so that was my one friend, was my cousin, who is 2 or 3 years younger than me. And then my grandmother lived down the street from us also. But I had no friends kind of growing up, but I had like outside, and it was just, I played outside all summer long. And it was, you know, I'd go on walks with my mom through this Shawnee forest that we lived near. And we'd go get pine cones in the winter to make wreaths out of pine cones or whatever. My parents had a huge garden, so I was out helping them do things like that. I was like a real kid doing things outside before all this technology came. So I'm saying that because my guest that I have today, her name is Betti. And Betti is very tied to the earth. And we talked about her childhood and just how she was so upset when she realized that animals are going extinct. And I think there was a lot of emotional pain. And I think her journey, which you'll hear about today in today's episode, she really connects to the earth, and she connects to endangered species, and she's gone through kind of this personal healing. And I think her story is unique, and it just kind of made me think about whenever I was living in Southern Illinois till I was 7, just how attached I was to nature. And then when I moved to Florida, I wasn't as attached to nature because I lived in a city, or not in the middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere. We played in the pool and we were outside kids when I moved to Florida, but it was just like different. So Betti's story just reminded me of growing up when I was a kid, where I had this big yard and I would lay in the middle of the grass and just look up at the sky, sometimes for hours, and I'd see an airplane go by. And it was just a different way of life. So that's my little personal story to introduce this story with Betti. So hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening. Hi, welcome to the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest. She is a shamanic healer, minister of the Church of Earth Healing, spiritual empowerment activist, and the founder of Betti Rooted Waters Healing Sanctuary in New York. She is a fire priestess, a mother, and a guide for those who carry deep emotional pain, ancestral wounds, and a longing to reconnect with the earth and their own power. I'm really, really happy to welcome Betti Rooted Lionheart to my show. Thanks so much for joining.
Hi, Zach. Thank you for having me.
So I have obviously read and done some research on you, and I think what you're doing is really amazing. And I would love to kind of just talk about Well, first, let's get started and talk about your story. How did you go through this transformation that you went through? And tell my audience what the transformation is that you went through.
Okay, that's kind of a big
It's a
question.
lot, isn't it?
Yeah, and probably as most stories, it begins in childhood. At the age of 7, I became aware of endangered species. And so from that point on, I just became more and more aware of what humans were doing to the earth. And
Mhm.
so essentially from 7 to 37, I lived in despair and depression. And really didn't have any mentors, didn't have any way to deal with that. I was always looking for, what is my part? What am I supposed to do in this world to make a change? And that took me through, going to graduate school. And I've never used my degree. I have a master's in geography that I've never
Yeah.
touched. From there, I went into a farming training program, organic farming. What I'd been studying in school was the toxic nature of our global food system.
Mhm.
And so I decided I wanted to learn how to grow food without using poisons. And that's the point at which I met my now ex-husband. We have 2 kids together. But at that time in my life, the dream emerged to create a farm-based intentional community, a place that could be a model of sustainability and a place that could survive collapse of these systems that are destroying the planet.
Mhm.
And so I held that vision for a very long time. None of that came to pass. And in 2015, after living the worst and hardest years of my life, which were after my second child was born, and we were trying to start that farm and community while raising 2 very young kids,
Mhm.
I hit bottom. And
Like with depression or just like life overall? It was just,
I had been living, I had not realized, right, that I had been living with depression my whole life. Like I was never diagnosed. By the time of my own mother's death, she had lived with depression for 46 years. And it was only like in the last 10 or so years of her life that she was diagnosed and on medication. And so I wasn't really aware of that for myself. I know it now in retrospect. So at that point, what happened in 2015 for me is that when my youngest son was born in 2012, I had major physical birth trauma. He was actually born at home, and we had to go to the hospital to stitch me up. And so I have what's called a rectovaginal fistula, which is a small hole between my vaginal canal and my colon. And in 2015, after like 3 years of ignoring that there was something
Mhm.
wrong down there, I finally had a surgery. And the hitting bottom was the moment when I realized the surgery had not worked.
Oh.
And so, like that, on top of, struggle for 3 years raising really little kids, trying to create this dream that wasn't happening. We had by 2015 had to give up on the farm. And so that was my hit bottom moment. And what brought me out of that was, one thing was poetry. In 2015, I started writing poetry. And then at the end of 2015 is when I met my shamanic teacher. And it's also when I found the work that reconnects. And both of those things are what really transformed my life. And so I'll explain what shamanic journeying is.
And how did you meet your teacher?
Yeah, I found a flyer at the local food co-op. It said some kind of, shamanic workshop. I didn't know what that was. I didn't care. It said the Church of Earth Healing.
Okay.
Like that was what I had been searching for my whole life without knowing that I'd been looking for that. And so when I saw those words, I was like, oh, I need to contact this person.
Mhm.
And so I did. Within a month of meeting this person, I had joined her shamanic drumming circle, which was weekly. And by the end of January of 2016 is when she held her workshop in which she teaches people to shamanic journey. So shamanic journeying is this learned skill of allowing a piece of your spirit to leave your body safely
Mm-hmm.
and go into the spirit world and meet and communicate with your spirit guides. And our spirit guides are the ones who have, the healing energy, the unconditional love, the transformational experiences for us that really, truly, and absolutely change our lives for the better. So the other piece of my journey has been the work that reconnects. And that is something that was developed by a woman named Joanna Macy. She actually started doing that work the year that I was born, but I was 37 before I found it. And that is this amazing group process for bringing people together to share our despair, our rage, our grief about everything, from our personal lives to the planetary, and sitting in circle with other humans, witnessing other people's despair and sharing your own is absolutely transformative. And part of my depression and despair had been that I felt so alone. It wasn't a conversation that I was having. It wasn't a conversation I was seeing in the world around me. The emotional aspect of what humans are doing to the planet, right? I had gone through a master's degree and I'd never encountered anyone talking about the emotional impact on us.
What made you care so much about what was happening in the world at that young age?
Well, what I like the moment, right, was I was with my cousin. We were on a camping trip. She had a deck of endangered species cards.
Okay.
And we were actually pretending that we had cameras and that those were the pictures that we were taking.
Okay.
And I've been a lifelong cat person. And one of those cards was the ocelot, a small Latin American cat. And just that, the fact that it was a cat, and just that understanding that like someday there might not ever be any more of this particular animal is really what activated it. And what I've since learned, more recently in my life, is that I am one of the people who is essentially an antenna for the collective pain.
Okay.
I've held that. It's not easy to be an antenna for the collective pain.
Okay. And that was you were 7 at that point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you met your teacher, and you met this group of people, and that's where your life started to really. Sounds like is that the transformation when it kind of began?
Yeah, absolutely. That is when the transformation began. Mm-hmm.
And tell me, what did you know right away after you met your teacher that this person was going to change your life?
Yeah, I did. Really in the workshop that I took when I went into the spirit world and I met Grandmother Moon for the first time. That was a really profound experience.
Walk me through that. What does that mean? You met Grandmother Moon, just so my audience knows. And
yeah. So let me do a little bit, I guess, of backstory. I was raised Catholic,
Okay.
and that was not ultimately right for me.
Yeah.
And so I left that religion, and I knew for a very long time that I leaned pagan, but I never explored it beyond like a book, or I never found a group. I never found a teacher. At one point, I have this memory of deciding to go out on the full moon and do something to honor the full moon. And I did that, and I was working at a goat dairy in California at that time. And I'm someone who never ever wore skirts, but for whatever reason, I put a skirt on. I went out. There was a cat that lived at this goat dairy that was not a terribly friendly cat. And for whatever reason, when I was doing this, the cat wanted to attack my skirt.
Oh.
And so I took that as ooh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, right? And so that one attempt was immediately shut down. And that was 10 years before what I'm going to share now. in the shamanic journey in which I met Grandmother Moon. So to go on a shamanic journey, the very first, most important thing is to ground, center, and shield. And what that does is it protects your physical body and your spiritual body. And the way that I've been given to do that and to teach is to imagine becoming a tree and rooting deeply into the earth, and then also raising the arm branches up and kind of embracing the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I do this. And then a piece of my spirit slips out of that tree body, and I climb up that tree to the moon. And the moon is where I meet my spirit guides. But of course, at that point, I hadn't collected a bunch of spirit guides. I did have already from the previous day, it was a 2-day workshop. I had met an elephant, a chipmunk, and a lioness and an owl. So I had those 4 animal spirit guides. And when I went up to the moon, seeking to meet what my teacher calls a teacher, I just call them spirit guides, but like a human form kind of teacher, like a goddess, a god. When I arrived on the moon, I was overwhelmed with this knowing that that spirit guide, that teacher that I was seeking, was Grandmother Moon herself. She wasn't visible to me in any kind of human form. It was just this very visceral, body-based knowing that Grandmother Moon is this teacher that I was seeking. And I knew that I needed to get down on my knees and ask her to guide me. And her response was very stern. It was, "You need to honor me properly." And that was imbued with you have known for 10 years that you should be honoring me, and you have not. And if you want me to be your teacher, you need to honor me properly. And so that was very stern, but she has since, her personality is very, very loving, very supportive, very healing. But she was just very clear that I had responsibility here.
Is that how you learn to be a healer yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, through the shamanic journeying, through taking my teacher's year-long apprenticeship. Yeah.
Tell me the type of people that come to you for these sessions, and what's some of the issues that they're having that you're helping them solve?
So I'll speak to my own healing journey has very much been about finding and reclaiming and using my voice, becoming empowered to do my work in the world. So those are things that I specialize in, and people definitely come to me for that. We've sort of talked about one of the things that I specialize in, that work that reconnects. I specialize in working with people who feel the despair, the grief, the rage, like I call it all the hard and heavy emotions. I held for 6 years what I was calling a despair and discovery circle in Ithaca, New York. And so that's one of the ways that I would connect with people, really people who are feeling those emotions about the earth. And so I help people with all of those things, and also the the relationship stuff, the job stuff, the health stuff. Shamanic healing it's really the most ancient way that humans connected to spirit and to the earth and healed each other. And it's holistic. So it covers the emotion, the spirit, the body, the mind, all of it as this system. None of that is separate from each other.
When you're bringing somebody into a session, it's not just one and done. Are they coming back kind of to get healed through multiple sessions?
Ideally, yes. I mean, of course, there's always some people who come one and done. There's a specific need that they have, and the shamanic healing can really meet that need and change something significant for them. And then you don't hear from that person again. But yes, it is most transformative working with someone over the long term, multiple sessions. We can really shift things dramatically in that way. And one of the things that I most love doing is actually teaching people to shamanic journey, because what that does is puts your own healing into your own hands.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about you discovered your sexuality
Well,
when you were much later in life. At 45 is whenever.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so how was that? I mean, were you kind of relieved that you figured out like who you were after 45 years of living?
Oh gosh. Well, let's see. I so what I want to say is that my ex-husband, father of my kids, he is from the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay. So he's, yep. Okay.
Right? So like gayness, queerness, like very
Yep.
in
Everywhere.
everywhere. I mostly grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, which is the deep south.
Yeah.
I was in high school in the mid 1990s. And when I told my ex that I was dating a woman, he was annoyed. Like, how could you not know this about yourself? And so I was like, oh, how could I not know this about myself? And the answer is because of where and when I grew up. There were no queer people. There was no modeling of that. And I'm bisexual, so I fit an appropriate box.
Okay.
So there was no way for me to really know that there is this other part of me that does not belong in that box at all. And I even in this period I called my sister, and she had gone to the most alternative high school in Tallahassee, Florida, where I mean I just assumed there like half of the students would have been queer.
Yeah.
And I called her and I said, so I knew she had one friend who was queer, and I knew that person. And I asked her, so like, how many other queer people were at your high school? None, right? Like,
Really?
there's one queer person in her high school at that time.
I'm surprised Tallahassee's not more open just because of the college. FSU is there. So, but
Well, I mean, it
but I
might
know I know what Tallahassee's about though, because I grew up in Florida as well. So I know why there could be gay, queer, lesbian people there, but it's probably, especially in the 90s, it probably wasn't, people weren't out. I was what I'm
and
missing.
I wasn't on the college campus at that time, right? So I wouldn't have known what,
Yeah. Yeah.
was going on there.
And so your sister said she only knew one person, and then you were shocked, I'm assuming, because you figured there would be
Yeah,
more.
I really was, but it also really helped me understand, like, okay, why I had not known this about myself. And just in terms of my queerness journey, my ex and I were together for 18 and a half years, and the divorce decision came about because I really came to understand that what we wanted in life and what we had always wanted in life was very different. Like those big dreams that I was talking about, the intentional community, he actually never really wanted that and never said that to me. And so I was like doing my all to create this dream. But when you're partnered with someone who doesn't actually want to do that, you can't create it.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that is when the marriage ended for me. And I was very certain that I do not want to be in a relationship for 20 years. Like, I have given my energy, I have raised kids, and I was very certain for most of my earlier life that I was not going to bring kids onto this crazy planet, right? I was not going to add humans to destroying the earth, and I was not going to bring spirits in to have to experience this craziness.
Yeah.
And I came to believe that I had met the right person to do that with, and that we shared these dreams, and that raising kids in the ways that I thought was right, which would have been in that intentional community, homeschooled, with all kinds of skills to grow food and survive, all of that, that they could be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. So, at the point of the divorce decision, I had been living a much more American consumer life than I ever wanted to. Kids in public school, being taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America and all the, the stuff that at this point we should not be teaching young people, right? And so it was time for me to not give my energy to anyone or anything other than like myself and my purpose work and my kids, of course. But my spirit guides had other ideas for me, and they landed this amazing, beautiful woman at my doorstep.
Okay.
And there's a little bit too much story to go into the like why I was jolted out of not wanting to have a relationship for 20 years, but I came to realize that like, ooh, I actually do want someone to love and to be loved by and supported by and to walk with. And that's what my spirit guides thought I needed. So they
Okay.
made me realize that, and they dropped that person on my doorstep. And so for me, I mean, I've heard, of course, that like queer dating, I think dating in general, right, on the apps, like it can be a long, hard
Yeah.
slog, a lot of yucky experiences. And my partner had to go through that long, hard slog, but she was the first person I connected with on her app. And I didn't have to go through any of that. And that's
You're
spirit.
lucky.
Yes.
Because I mean, I've been in a relationship for almost 27 years, so I'm lucky that I didn't have to go through the apps either. But my friends that go through it seems so painful. Like it seems like a horrible experience, and I think some of my friends, it consumes their life, where they're constantly on there looking for someone.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, I was lucky, but it really truly was my spirit guides. Like I live in this relationship where I can ask for and receive help for what I need, what I'm trying to manifest in the world.
Yeah, and how did your kids, how old were your kids whenever you met her and whenever you discovered this about yourself?
Well, let's see. So my kids at the divorce decision moment, that's 2021. They were 13. Is that right? Yeah, 13 and 9.
Okay.
And I'll also mention that my ex and I still live together.
Okay.
He actually just bought a house and is about to move out, but that like almost 4 years has been amazing for our kids because their world didn't change at all.
Mhm.
And this was possible to do because we're both good people, right? It wasn't abusive or anything. We just wanted different things. And so, I brought this relationship into this home where my ex also lives. And so I met her in June of 2023. So, like 2.5 years after the divorce decision. And we spent June to October getting to know each other before I introduced her to my kids.
Yeah.
And, some people would say, it should be a bit longer than that, but
It's whatever works for you, I think.
it was very, very clear that we were each other's people.
Yeah.
And so it was the right time. And the kids get along with her. They love her. Our dog loves her. And my husband thinks she's a nice person. I think it would have been much more difficult if I was bringing a man into the house. And she's not a big bulldozing personality at all. She is very much someone who, fits in and does not cause conflict.
And I mean, kids are so different from whenever I was growing up or you were growing up. So I'm assuming your kids didn't even blink an eye, right? I mean,
They didn't. I mean, even well before I knew that I was queer, right? They had just been raised with the conversation is that like, when you are ready to fall in love with someone, it is okay if you fall in love with a boy or girl or, whatever
you want.
genders are in between that, right? So that is just what they were familiar with. And so they didn't really bat an eye.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on what part of the country you live in, but I do feel like kids are coming out in junior high and high school now and figuring out who they are. And whenever I was in high school and junior high, I grew up in south of Miami area, and that never would have happened. You never would have came out. I'd tried to deny it for so long to myself that I was even gay. And so if I would have like tried to come out in high school, I don't know. I would have been so bullied that I probably would have had to been taken out of school.
Yeah. And I mean, there were, again, no queer people in the high school that I went through.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do live in near the Ithaca, New York area. That's where
Mhm.
Cornell University is. It's very liberal.
Yeah. I love that area.
It's beautiful. The most
Yeah.
alternative high school that's here is like full of queer young
Yeah.
people.
And you call yourself a fire priestess. Tell me what that archetype or role means to you.
Well, so I'll start by saying that I am a Leo and I'm cuspy with Cancer, and I've always identified with Cancer rather than Leo, right? Because Leo is the fiery leader,
Mhm.
and that has never been me, right? I've had to go through this 9+ year journey to find and use my voice to be sitting here with you having this conversation. And so becoming a fire priestess has been this, 9+ year process of developing a relationship with fire, like physical fire, but with my own internal fire. And it has involved, it began just with, lighting a candle
Mhm.
every day at my sacred space in my home. Part of Grandmother Moon's "You Have to Honor Me Properly," she told me how. I needed to light a candle every day and I needed to burn a little bit of sage.
Okay.
That's how I honored her. And that is what began my relationship with fire. And also in 2016, so in this first year of me having a relationship with spirit guides, my spirit guides showed me that there's this very sacred and powerful place on this land that I love and steward. So, what I tend to say is that I own 105 acres in the white colonizer way. And that land, once I learned how to listen, the land told me that it wanted to become a healing sanctuary.
Okay.
And that its spirit name is Braided Root Waters. And so I was shown this sacred center of this land is this rather large medicine wheel. And the medicine wheel is this beautiful, similar to Wheel of Life concept, in which the four directions, north, east, south, and west, are related to, for me and at this land, the north is related to water and Grandmother Moon and our emotional body. The east is related to fire, Grandfather Sun, our spiritual body. The south is related to Mother Earth, the element Earth, and our physical body. And the west is related to Father Sky, the element air, and our mental body. So
Okay.
it just has multiple layers of meaning. And when I was shown this space, that it exists there, I was given a lot of instructions for making it visible to humans: stonework, posts, tree planting. And at the center was an altar, a spot to sit. There was no fire in this medicine wheel anywhere. And then eventually, a few years later, I was shown to create a small fire circle in the east and to sit in solo sacred fires there for a year. And then after that was complete, I was shown a small fire in the south and to sit and have solo fires for a year in that spot. And then in the west, right, the
Yeah.
following year, and then the north, and finally the center. And so now this space has 5 fire circles. And this is a place where I have like equinox and solstice
Mhm.
gatherings, various things. I'm about to start doing more, calling people into this sacred space to do healing work together and community building. Being a fire priestess to me means that I have this very deep relationship with that element. And that element to me really is the embodiment of transformation and bringing transformation into my own life and other people's lives is ultimately what I do, like on a very foundational level. And bringing people together around fire is very much a part of that. And at some point along this journey, just this knowing emerged for me that the reason that humans tend to sit in a circle is because we used to sit around fire.
Mm,
And when you're sitting around fire, you're sitting in a circle.
yeah.
And that is the ancient origin of humans sitting in a circle. And that work that reconnects, that despair work that I do, is humans sitting in a circle and coming together.
You kind of talk about helping people reclaim their voice, their power, and their purpose. What are some signs that someone that is out of alignment of their true purpose, like, and how do you help them kind of reconnect to who they are?
Well, the signs are that someone is unhappy with their life, unhappy with their job, unhappy with their relationship. There's just this level of discontent. There's a knowing that, like, I'm here to be doing something more than, doing the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But what is that? Right? What is my purpose? And so in the spiritual circles, right, there is this idea that before we come into a human body, our spirits sort of decide, what it is that we're coming here to do. And then we're born here and we forget, right? We are infants. Our brains still need to grow and develop. We forget. Now, if you go back thousands of years to our tribal origins, when we would come in, actually before we were born, the people, the shamans of the tribe, the medicine people, would do rituals and communicate with the spirit of the child in the mother's belly and find out why they're coming. And that I learned from Sobonfu Some, like that is not my own knowing.
Yeah.
And so then the community would know why we're coming, and we're born and we're caught in this community where every adult in that community, their purpose is to love and support and guide us in our mission. And what we're here for, right, is to contribute something of value to our community. And so from the earliest age, that young person would be watched and mentored by multiple people. And by the time our bodies are biologically adults, 12, 13, 14, we were skilled. We had a role in our society. We were ready to procreate, right? Like, I'm 47. I could be a great grandmother right now.
Yeah.
But I'm raising, 13 and 17-year-old children.
Yeah.
And I'm not, like, we don't anymore live in a world where that's supported.
Yeah.
But so going back to the original purpose, right, or point, is that we come in and we're not caught by any form of community. We're lucky if we have a nuclear family of origin that's not broken, that's not abusive, that's not, all of these difficult things. And there just isn't really any way to find out what our deeper purpose is without, living a life of this trauma, that trauma, trying this, failing at that, or doing really well in this career, but it's, emotionally draining. It's not why I'm here. All of these things. And so we tend to have to hit bottom like I did, to be like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Something has to give.
Tell me how I'm assuming a lot of people that you're helping are part of the LGBTQ plus community. Is that accurate, or is there?
That is the direction that I am definitely moving in.
Okay.
So I began the shamanic journey in 2016. I became a shamanic healer in 2019. I discovered that I was queer in 2023.
Okay.
And so, I do want to say that, like, along that journey, I started my own small housekeeping business to, like, earn income, support my family, and be, moving along this spiritual path. I had several queer housekeeping clients because I was someone who just felt safe to have come into their home and clean their home. So there is that energetic of, like, I am someone who feels safe. And so, yes, I have worked with queer people because they do come into my field even before I realized I was queer. But my own queerness journey, the first year was really about my relationship with my partner. And then the second year of that journey has really been about what does queerness mean to me and how do I serve this community that is now my community. And so what I'm doing now is I've just ended that despair and discovery circle that I held for 6 years and have launched the Queer Despair and Resilience Circle. And so that's a fully online so that I can have a broad reach, once a month opportunity for queer people to come together in a virtual circle to, share the rage, the despair, the grief, to do that, witnessing others, being witnessed, and feeling transformed in that space.
I think it's so important to do stuff like this now, just because of the state of the world and where we are. Like it's, I do another podcast where I do 10 minutes or less of LGBTQ plus news. I do it a couple of times a week. And all the stories, I try to find positive stories, but it's all so 80% are negative just because of the state that our community is going, trans people, what they're going through. It's insane, the rights that are being taken away and how people are being targeted, and it's sad. So I think groups like this are so important for people to be able to come together and feel that support.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Have held one circle so far, and the next one is actually this coming Monday. Though by the time this airs, that will be relevant. But it's I will just speak. That's every second Monday of the month, from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay,
USA.
That's great. And how are you feeling, kind of about as being a healer, and when you think about like where you kind of started, where you're thinking about these endangered animals and stuff, and having the earth kind of regenerate itself, are you feeling better about that now, or are you like, what's your feelings on that?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. Am I feeling better about that now?
And maybe you're feeling, and the way, and part of my question is, are you feeling better because you're doing stuff about it as an individual, like, is that?
Thank you. Yeah. So, yes, I feel like I am actively taking steps to do what I am here to do.
Okay.
And the world is actively, falling apart around us, and species are going extinct left and right. There is a knowing that the earth will be fine. Humans might not exist. A lot of the species might not exist. The earth will be fine. And over billions of years, something new and different and beautiful can and will emerge. Like once the earth has dealt with all the toxins that we've spewed and all of that, like that, fine. I understand that, but that doesn't help me with like humans. I would love for humans to still be here. I would love for tigers to still exist, and trees, right? So there's different levels of view, I guess, to take. And there's also the, knowing that we are not just this one human body, this one time, but that we are these spirits that exist beyond this, right? And even beyond this planet.
So I agree with you, and but tell my listeners what you think. I guess my question would be: is whenever we die out of this body, what do you think happens?
Well, the things that I have been shown, we cross over to the spirit world, where we receive the healing that we need in order to become ready to carry out another life. We can choose to come back here. I was shown some time ago that there's another planet that is being prepared for us, or maybe is already prepared for us, where we can choose to go. One of the things that I was shown in that same journey is that, like, tigers tend to like to reincarnate as tigers. Like, we have this tendency to kind of reincarnate into the same form
Mhm.
that we're familiar with. And there's actually a beautiful children's book. I'm not sure I'll get the title correct. I think it's called The Mountains of Tibet. And it's this beautiful story of an old man dying. And then he goes into the spirit world and has all of these choices. He chooses the planet, the
Mhm.
location, and he winds up right back in the same spot
Yeah.
on the same planet, but he chooses to be female instead of male that
Yeah.
time. So, there is some truth to that. And, we can also choose to come in as other forms to have different experiences. And as I've been shown, we can choose to go elsewhere. And there's also, I haven't delved deeply into it, but this idea that different people come here from different star systems.
So I did a past life regression,
Mhm.
and this woman named Myra Rath who did it, and she was on my podcast a few months ago. And she, basically she took me, hypnotized me and took me through. And she told me what a couple of my past lives were. And I never would have thought that. What was interesting is that I was a man that was a farmer in Kansas, had a wife, 2 kids, totally not who I am today. Straight man with a wife, so and kids. And another one, I was not on this planet. So it was really, this woman is amazing. And she's done it with so many people. And she's the one that really made me believe about, kind of coming back and having past lives and reincarnation and stuff, because it's like it's there and she just making you remember it and stuff. And then I'm like, oh, okay, now. And I basically was looking at my house that I had as this straight farmer, and I don't know what year, in the 30s or 40s, I felt like it might have been, or something. And one of my kids was my husband. And so, and she says it's common for the people to come back and to follow you through. I'd have to go back and listen to it. I can't remember exactly, but there was somebody else that was there that was part of my life today, that was part of that life then, and stuff. And you kind of choose to come back as different. You have the same people but different roles and stuff. So it's so interesting, I think.
It is. And I'd love to share one of my own past lives
Yeah.
that's relevant to my queerness journey. So it would have been at the end of 2021, like a month or so after the divorce decision, that I took my teacher's past life workshop. And for one of the journeys, the guidance was, choose someone that is important to you in your life and find out what kind of a past life you had with them.
Okay.
And so I chose a woman who I still consider myself very close friends with. We met at the same farming program where I met my ex. And she's actually the one who sparked the intentional community dream for me. And so she was early on part of that process of let's create this dream together. And she lives in Oklahoma, and like we're lucky if we talk once a year or two, but we're still very, dear to each other, that kind of friendship. And so I wanted to find out about her. And so what I discovered in the journey, I was shown that I had a past life with her. I don't know when. It was ancient and tribal. And we were both wives of the same man. And we had, children, each had children. We were raising our children together. And she and I were actually also lovers. And at that time in that tribe, that was totally acceptable.
Yeah.
And we actually, the man at one point died and we outlived him. And then, we were the couple. And after that journey, it was the first time that I kind of went, what if I dated a woman? Part of what I wasn't receiving in my marriage was the whole emotional aspect. And it was kind of like, well, women are a lot better at the emotional support thing. And so that was really the origin of the what if? And then it kind of went from there.
I think there's so many fascinating things that are out there now about these kids that they're young still, 2, 3, even 1, and they're kind of now going through and documenting this. And I watched a couple of podcasts and documentaries about this, about these kids that remember things when they from a past life. And some of the parents have even gone to like another country because that's where they said that they were at, and found like the proof, like that some of their family is still living, and they said exactly what the room looked like or the house looked like inside. And I think it's just so fascinating that, you know, now that we have the technology to kind of record this stuff and just share it with other people, I think it's so interesting about the whole reincarnation thing and coming back.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to join your group or learn more about you, can you, it's at sacraltransformations.com? Sacraltransformations.com. I will put that link in the description of this podcast or video so people can come and find you. And are you on any of the social media platforms that they should look for you as well?
Oh gosh, I'm a little bit and supposed to be more. I'm not really a social media person. So really my website is the best place. Yeah.
Great.
And you're more social media, but
yeah. Well, I'll promote you on my social media and drive people to your website, and all the information about joining your online biweekly circle. That would be on your website, I'm assuming, for them to go.
Yeah, the Queer Despair and Resilience Circle. It's once a month, second Monday of the month. And yes, I'd love to give you the link for that so that it can be easily linked.
Send that to me as well, and I'll include that. And if somebody wants to meet with you for healing, or can they contact you through your website for that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd also love to give you the link for going to my website. And if you put in your name and your email address, then you'll get in an email a voice recording of a guided shamanic journey. So I would guide you through an experience of journeying so that you can try it out for yourself and see what it's like. And yes, you can connect with me online, and I can give you a link for people to book a call with me too, if you'd like to.
Yeah, send me all that, and we'll include that for all of the listeners so they can do it. Thank you. I mean, I love what you're doing. I love what you're about. I love it that you found out who you were, even though it was a little later in life, because I think a lot of people go through their whole life and never know who they really are. So it's great that you've been able to do that.
Thank you.
And it's inspiring. I mean, because I'm sure there's people listening to this podcast that are living the life that they don't really want to live and aren't being honest with themselves, or just don't know maybe. And so maybe you'll be that inspiration for them to think about it a little more. So
that would be wonderful. And if I could add one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
That like organized religion has been so harmful to so many queer people. And the shamanic spiritual path is such a safe and welcoming spirituality. And like I said, it's the most ancient way that humans were spiritual, and it's in everyone's ancestry. It belongs to everyone, and anyone can learn to shamanic journey and be directly connected with their spirit guides, directly connected to the divine. And so I really want that for everybody, and queer people in particular who've been so harmed.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you could help them do that if they wanted to?
Yes, that is one of the things I most love doing.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Betti, for being on. I think you're a fabulous guest. I love your story. Like, again, it's so inspiring, and I think it's really going to resonate with people. So
thank you for having me, Zach.
You're welcome. Everybody, please leave a comment and go to Betti's website. I'll put it in the description of this podcast or video, however you're watching or listening. And thanks for being on again, Betti.
Yes, you're welcome.